Literally nobody on the face of the earth needs to do 20 sets to make good gains. Hey everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this. Because it's one of these topics that people bring up. You have all these volume discussions and debates, and let's be fair here. Very simple reality. Very simple reality. The evidence is conflicting regarding these sort of volumes being useful at all for hypertrophy. We need to keep that in mind. In other words, some sets of scientists have found that people gain less muscle when they take volumes up that high, right? Other researchers, when they do say, hey, we do see small amounts of extra muscle growth, I want to be extremely clear here. Not once has any of these same scientists or labs that are saying this ever found that even doing 10 hard sets a week failed to produce muscle growth. Okay, so let's be very, very clear here. What does the evidence say about volume? It's a mixed bag, meaning some researchers, again, show that very high volumes, we're talking 15, 20 plus sets, produces less muscle growth. Okay, now keep in mind, a lot of these studies are not that well done. There's a lot of problems with the exercise science. I have said many times there's problems with sample sizes, the fact that it's mostly novices, measurement biases, all sorts of problems. But that being said, if we go off the total sum available studies we have before we even look at the real world and the anecdote, we look at the sum total of the studies. You have one set of scientists saying these higher volume studies cause equal or less gains than, say, more moderate volumes, 8 to 12 sets a week. And then you have researchers who are showing that the higher volume studies cause a little bit more muscle growth. But we need to be clear here. The ones that are saying more muscle growth are not saying that people are not making phenomenal gains on much less volume. And that's a point that needs to be made extremely clear here. We need to be extremely clear here. Again, when they are showing small amounts of extra muscle growth, it's something like 5 or 10% more total growth over several months. Meaning if people gained a pound of muscle, right? The people in the higher volumes gained like another ounce of muscle more over that 1 pound over people who are doing something like 10 sets or 12 sets. So when you look at the data, you're really looking at the very, very high volumes, this, 20 plus sets a week or 30 or numbers they're coming up with. These are if they're even statistically significant, they're very, very, very small increases in muscle growth. It is does not support any sort of conclusion that large amounts of muscle growth or fantastic gains cannot be obtained on half of the volumes or a third of the volumes that some of these studies show. Because again, we come back over and look at data over the years. We can argue about the quality of the data in exercise science, and I think that's a valid criticism, right? We can absolutely argue about it, to the point where I do know people who have said any real science would laugh. Any other field of science, the things that they call studies and these muscle growth studies in exercise science would be laughed at. They wouldn't even be considered real science. I've heard it. People with science backgrounds in other areas kind of say that and laugh. They're like, this is not even real studies. This is a joke. But what they all do show consistently is that even more moderate volumes, if people train hard, people always gain decent amounts of muscle. And some of them have shown amounts of muscle even for trained lifters, people with 2 or 3 years of continual experience who are trained. They're not novices. They sometimes show very, very large amounts of muscle growth. On like 6 or 8 sets a week, there are multiple studies showing that sort of thing. Okay? So when you look at the sum total evidence, there is only evidence that very high volumes might produce slightly very small increases in muscle growth over more moderate volumes. They always show that if people train hard, they gain muscle. Okay? So when you get people who are like, well, I'm not making any gains. Well, are you cutting? You're not eating enough protein? Or are you just that advanced that they're going that slow? Because those are valid reasons, right? I mean, once you can do 10 or 12 reps with, 225 on the bench, or 315 on the squat or 405 on the deadlift, I mean, your gains are going to come pretty slow from that point forward in life. Let's be realistic. Okay? They're going to go at a snail's pace. So it could be that, or it could be that maybe you're just not training hard, or you're not eating enough to gain muscle. You may be in a deficit, maybe losing body fat. Okay? Those are all valid explanations. But usually, if you go off the data we have, almost everybody gains muscle if they train hard, even on lower volumes. Now, here's what I can say I've observed both in the real world and then as a coach. Plenty of people have built phenomenal physiques up to and including professional bodybuilders, have been on Mr. Olympia stages on, as few as 10 to 15 sets a week. It has been done. We've all seen people with phenomenal physiques who do 10 or less sets a week. I have personally met people and observed the way they train. People I've seen at gyms who trained significant periods of time, and I didn't see them deviate from that sort of training, who look way more impressive than I do. Okay? They exist. I've seen plenty of them. We've seen pro bodybuilders win shows on those sort of volumes, so we know it's possible. As a coach, I can say that by and large, the things that I have noticed is that with most of my clients, I usually find the people that have completely stalled literally just train too much. They train too much. They do too many sets. They end up being low quality sets. They're overtrained. They're exhausted all the time. And when I scale them back, they start making progress again. They start gaining muscle. They start gaining strength. And by strength, I don't just mean their 1 rep max lifts. I mean their 10 rep maxes go up, right? If they've only been able to do 150 pounds for 3 sets of 10, before long they're doing 160, 165 for 3 sets of 10. After they've been stalled for months, purely by cutting them back to more reasonable levels of volume. I've observed this multiple times as a coach with both late novices and advanced lifters. So it's been my experience as a coach that when volumes go too high, we start exceeding about 20 sets a week, people tend to stagnate. I see way more stagnation than anything, repeatedly. That is my observation as a coach and as a trainer. So again, my observations tend to be in line with those other set of researchers. Can produce less muscle growth. Okay? But we come back over to the other point. If we go by all the data we have, there is not a single person out there who needs 20 sets to see good muscle growth. You just don't. And there's no evidence to suggest, either anecdotally or in a laboratory, to even suggest that you do. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.